Okay, we're gonna try this again. So this is take two. This is your part two, your second look at the astrology of February 10th through 16th, 2020. My name is Katie Sweetman. My work is empowering astrology. And if you are joining me live, please let me know in the comments that you can hear me, that this is working. Like I was saying before this cut out for the second time, that I had the audacity to invoke Mercury retrograde. The point I was trying to make is that Mercury retrograde isn't something to really get anxious about. It's obviously very annoying at times because Mercury is the planet of communication, choice, voice. So everybody is hearing me fine, great. You're hearing my voice, you're hearing how I'm using Mercury. You know, what I was trying to say when the feed cut out is that every planet turns retrograde except for the sun and moon, at least from the perspective of astrology and the perspective of Earth. The planet isn't actually going backwards, it's appearing to go backwards. It's an illusion. But it's a time when we have to take a second look at how we do that planet. So in the case of Mercury, which is the planet that does it the most frequently, we have to take a second look. We have to become aware and conscious of how we use that planet, how we use that energy, how we use that archetype. It's that simple. And sometimes, or maybe you could argue that the reason things get so weird, the train is late, you lose your keys, the microphone's not working, the Facebook feed drops out, is that it gives you a chance to kind of take a step back and do things differently. So that said, this week, we're getting ready for Mercury retrograde. Mercury turns retrograde on Sunday, February 16th, and it's doing so at 12 degrees of Pisces. And I have to admit, the run up to this Mercury retrograde has felt a little, let's say, shenanigan-y. Is that even a word? You know, kind of the internet joke is it's like Mercury Gatorade, and I feel like it's like extra Gatorade-y. Like my modem was being weird, my cell phone, my computer, everything's kind of weird right now. And I don't know, maybe that's because Mercury is in Pisces. Pisces, I love you, but you're like the least grounded, physical in this world sign of all the zodiacs, because you're the sign of spirituality, you're the sign of energy, you're the sign that kind of links us between lives and different chapters. So this is going to be a Mercury retrograde, and also the run up this week to Mercury retrograde, to really double check things, to look at the fine print, to maybe hold on a big decision. And I think I started to say this in a previous video, is my personal rule of thumb is that if money and heartache is on the line, and you have the luxury to wait, because we don't always have the luxury to wait, wait. But we have to live our lives. So if you have to get a new job, if you have to make a big decision, if you have to make a big purchase, just give yourself some backup, give yourself some insurance. Somebody had mentioned before we cut out the first time that they're booking a trip during Mercury retrograde, and I was like, me too. I'm going out of the country next week, and this might be a terrible idea, but we'll see. But it just means that I have to personally double check things. Yes, astrologers do things like travel during Mercury retrograde. But, you know, the retrogrades are about the past. So maybe there's something for me to discover about the past in another country. In this case, it would be Spain. I'm just checking on the comments. Hello from the UK. Hello, Allison, Diane, Candace, Bonnie. Thank you for sticking with me tonight. And let's say this evening's audio, video, whatever, Mercury retrograde shenanigans. This week, another thing to keep in mind, I mean, it is Valentine's week, so we have to sort of honor that. It's a week that we kind of think about relationships with ourselves, relationships with others, relationships with a romantic partner or partners. I think that it's important to note that Venus right now is in Aries. And Venus in Aries, especially if we're kind of looking at relationships this week, it's a planet and a sign together that wants freedom, it wants action, it maybe gets bored a little bit quickly. It needs to kind of go out on the hunt. So should you, let's say, want some companionship this week, whether it's a friend, whether it's a lover, like Venus in Aries says you got to go out and get it. It's not going to come to you. Venus is in what's called a Mars-ruled sign. So it needs to take action, it needs to be decisive, it needs to be competitive, and perhaps even a little bit aggressive. Venus is also meeting up with Chiron today, and there's this layer of experience. Now, Chiron is a planet, and I use that term loosely, but for the sake of astrology, it's a planet that talks about an emotional experience. Let's say the heartbreak and the ache of the past with relationships, and maybe something from the past came up for you this weekend and even today around relationships, whether it's with somebody or something that you've experienced in the past. Chiron does give us an opportunity to heal, but there's this sense of really understanding how your experiences with relationships or Venus or value or worth or courage, Chiron is an Aries, connects you to a collective experience. So really having empathy for yourself, empathy for others. How do you forgive and let go if this is like an old heartbreak that's getting pressed upon this week? Chiron speaks to an area that almost feels like scar tissue in the chart. It needs some tender, loving care, which seems to be kind of at odds with, Valentine's Day and, love and romance. It's a bittersweet astrology, especially as Venus starts to cross the lunar nodes into February 13th. So there's a sense of turning a corner, the past, karma, fate, these kind of deeper soul lessons. So that's something that's going on. Candace says, there's a she-wolf in the closet. There's kind of that sense of Venus and Aries. It's not a timid placement for the planet of love, relationships, and values. I'm doing a webinar on February 12th called The Astrology of Love and Relationships, and I am going to be looking at, from the perspective of all relationships, what does Venus mean, and what does your Venus mean, and what you sort of attract, and how you socialize and cooperate and negotiate, and how other planets like Mars and Saturn, and even the Sun and Moon and Mercury talk about how you do relationships, and if you're in a relationship with somebody else, maybe how they do relationships and how you can better communicate, interact, and negotiate with them. So I did put the link to the webinar in the show notes if you want to register. It's kind of getting up on last call. It will be at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. I know that time is not the best for everybody, but you can still register to get the video and audio replay if you are not able to watch live. Somebody said going to the spa. Yeah, do something really nice for yourself. I think that there's a sense of individuality and soloness with Aries. Aries is the sign of I, the self. It's not we. It's not couples and together. It's singularity. So maybe it's a good week, regardless of everything that's going on, to focus on ourselves and focus on our own needs. As we go into this weekend, like I said earlier and also in the previous video, Mercury turns retrograde. It will do so on the 16th, so Sunday it turns retrograde at 12 degrees Pisces. But I think that the big news this week, which is coming right at the end of this week, is Mars going into Capricorn. Make sure you read your February horoscope. I think it's linked in the show notes. If you can't, just go to my website, empoweringastrology.com, and read your February 2020 horoscope, because I synthesized this, kind of the big picture for each sign. And what I was trying to say in this horoscope for you and for everybody is that we're going into a month where we've come out of, let's say, the intensities of January. We had the Saturn-Pluto conjunction on the 12th of January. We had a lunar eclipse on the 10th of January. It was pretty intense, and I know that January felt like a year. I think I made this comment in last week's video. January didn't feel like a month, it felt like a year, and it's hard to believe that we are about 5 weeks at this point away from New Year's. I mean, New Year's feels like 4 months ago, not 4 or 5 weeks ago. But the point I was trying to make in my horoscopes is that here we are, we've had a little bit of a time to get a lull, recoup, integrate. I think that the Leo full moon, and I wrote about this in my full moon report, which I also linked in the show notes, was a reminder to really, focus on ourselves, get that passion, get that spark, get that vitality back. Because when Mars goes into Capricorn, it's going to start to activate that energy again. Mars is the planet of making things happen, taking action, moving forward, motivation, courage. And it's going to activate those eclipse degrees. It's going to meet up with Saturn. It's going to meet up with Pluto into March. So we might see some twists and turns in the second half of February going into March. So Mars, it's pretty predictable. Like I said, it makes things happen. So I would just say that if certain themes were coming up for you, certain events were coming up for you in December and January, here comes another link to that time. The story is going to continue. Mars is also going to heat up that part of your life. So wherever Capricorn is in your chart, it's going to take action all the way up until the end of March. So get some rest in the meantime, before Mars kicks into Capricorn. Maybe it's not really a week to push too hard, especially with Mercury turning retrograde. And focus on yourself, focus on your needs, make sure you're tending to your relationships. If something from the past comes up, how do you take a second look? Laura's also saying that, yes, January did sure feel like a year. I don't think I put it in my show notes, but there is a link on my website called Saturn and Capricorn Sign by Sign. And that's the part of the chart that's getting activated, because what I've been saying to people is, February and March, Saturn's starting to come to the end of Capricorn. Yes, FYI, Saturn's going to get into Aquarius on March 21st. So March, February, March is crunch time. Saturn, it's not just Mars, but Saturn is saying to us, what have you learned since the beginning of 2018? How have you stepped up with authority? How have you mastered certain lessons? How have you taken time seriously, responsibility seriously? How have you been more accountable? These are all, themes and keywords for Saturn in Capricorn. So hopefully you've been really working hard and building out that part of your life. It's been hard work, and certainly it was probably really hard work in December and January. So do keep that in mind. Again, Mercury is turning retrograde, so we have to mind our P's and Q's this week and kind of make sure we're looking behind things. Katrina asks, Capricorn is her ascendant. So yeah, and this was something that somebody was asking me in the YouTube comments. I'm using something called, when I'm writing the horoscopes, the solar chart. So if you are a Capricorn, then you kind of place Capricorn on the first house, the first sign, and then you tell time based on where the planets are in what particular houses by whole sign. If you're Capricorn rising, the same logic applies. We're just using whole signs. This might be a little technical. So if Mars in Capricorn, or if Mars, rather, sorry, Capricorn is your first house, it's your ascendant, and then Mars is coming into your first house. It's going to activate new beginnings, initiatives, moving forward, taking action. It's just kind of doing it with an already full house. You got Jupiter there, you've got the South Node, you got Pluto, you've got Saturn. It's going to be a busy time. I mean, I think December, January, it's one point we had 6 planets in Capricorn. It's a lot of planets in Capricorn. I think that's why January felt like a year. Capricorn is manifestation and time. It, it feels heavy and dense. So Laura has Saturn and Pluto on her moon. If it's any consolation, Laura, Pluto, you will have to live another 248 years for Pluto to come back to your moon by conjunction. So the good news is that you're not going to live that long. I'm sure it's no surprise that you won't live another 200 years. So once you get through this, rebirth and new beginning, this is your only shot this lifetime. So really see what Pluto is trying to show you. Pluto to the moon, I do believe that it's kind of one of the more difficult transits to go through. I had the opposition about 10 or so years ago. It's an emotional purge, it's a psychic purge. The moon speaks of memory, the past, ancestry, family, instincts, the unconscious, and here comes Pluto bringing it all up. So it needs a lot of TLC. If you have Mars in Capricorn, Mars is coming back to home. It's what's called a Mars return. So it's just a time when you feel more energized. You are sort of returning to a natural state of how you use your Mars, how you take action, how you're motivated. Sort of Mars is the gas of the chart. It makes things go. Laura asked about Placidus. For the sake of this, and the sake of making things very simple, I'm just using whole signs. But in my client work, I use both whole sign and Placidus. Like whole sign is the, let's say, the base. Placidus is the ridges and the complexities and the interceptions that make that sort of thumbprint that makes you in this lifetime. I mean, that said, I also think that the chart is something that you are living in. It's not you. It's you, but it's not you. It's something that it's like the car that you drive. I'm just checking on the comments. If you already have a lot of planets in Capricorn, Vanessa, then Mars is just kind of throwing some gas on things. It's going to make things happen. So you've already probably already seen things in your chart and your life and that part of your life already. So Mars is like, it's the catalyst. So my hope is that we have been doing a lot of work with Saturn and Capricorn. The last time Mars was in Capricorn was 2 years ago, so I think it was the end of 2018. I have to double check that, going into 2019. And the Mars is, I think Mars is now we have to put something in that container to fill it with something. So we will see. So yeah, so gotta wrap up, everybody. So this has been your look at the astrology of February 10th through 16th, 2020. We have 2 parts to this video because Facebook decided to cut out. Do join me for my webinar on February 12th, the astrology of love and relationships, looking at all the different multifaceted ways in which a sign might connect and interact. So there's some personal information, a way for you to get to know your astrology more deeply. Also, follow me on Instagram, follow me on Facebook if you don't already. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I also have a newsletter, so please join my mailing list. All these links are in the show notes. But thank you all for your patience, especially with the technology. But let me know, give me your feedback and your comments. Let me know how you're doing. And, if you missed the live broadcast, of course, we can still communicate. Of course, I also have personal one-on-one consultations. If you are looking to work with an astrologer, check me out. All the links are on my website and empoweringastrology.com, and also in the show notes. So have a wonderful week. Remember, Mercury is slowing down. So maybe so should you. I don't know, just a thought. And we will check back next week. So, all right, take care. Bye.